Let's spend a few minutes reviewing the assistive technology consideration process for the IEP. We'll have a second video reviewing the same process for the IFSP. It's largely similar, but because the documents look so different, there are some definite differences between the two processes. So jumping into the IEP version, the goal of this consideration flowchart is really just to kind of give you a big picture overview of the conversation of assistive technology consideration, as well as some specifics about how to document that AT consideration in your IEP. Just as a quick reminder, AT consideration is a legally mandated component of every IEP meeting. So at least annually for any student with an IEP, assistive technology consideration has to take place. Of course, we know not every student has assistive technology needs, but every student is entitled to that consideration process. So starting with our first big question, is the student making adequate progress on IEP goals and objectives in their least restrictive environment? I think it's important that we frame this question around their least restrictive environment, because if we have a student who's making adequate progress, but they're spending a significant amount of time maybe outside of the general education setting, maybe some assistive technology can help support moving them more into their general education setting. So if the answer is yes, we've got a student who's making adequate progress in their LRE, then we're going to ask, is the student currently using AT that's successfully meeting their needs? If the student is using assistive technology and it's not working great, you would go over to the kind of outcome 3 and 4. But for now, let's stick with this AT that's successfully meeting the student's needs. If they're not using assistive technology and they're making adequate progress, we're going to come to outcome 1. AT was considered and is not needed at this time. And when you go into SPED forms in the assistive technology section, you're going to choose option 1 or 2 from the AT dropdown, depending on your specific student. If you have a student who is making adequate progress and they're using assistive technology as part of that, you're going to come to outcome 2. AT is already being used successfully. With this, you're going to choose outcome or option 3 from that assistive technology dropdown in SPED forms, and then you're going to document the specific features of the AT in the accommodations section. So we're only documenting our assistive technology decision in the assistive technology box, and then we're documenting the specific AT tools in accommodations, simply because that accommodation section with that grid is a nicer way to lay things out. It's a little bit easier to organize, easier to read. So that's the conclusion that we came to for how this best fits into SPED forms. Just a quick note, you'll see here it says document specific features. Our general rule with assistive technology is that we want to document the features of the assistive technology, not specific tool names or specific brands. For example, if you have a student who's using dictation, you would want to write, student will have access to dictation, access to voice typing, access to speech to text, whatever you want to call it. There are lots of names. What we don't want to document is student will have access to Dragon naturally speaking. Student will have access to dictation through Google Read and Write. And the reason we don't want to do that is because things change. Technology changes so rapidly. And if we have a better tool come out or the tool we're using gets pulled off the market and we can't use it anymore, we don't want to be tied into that. We don't want to have to reconvene a whole IEP meeting because we need to make a change to an assistive technology tool. The caveat to this is that occasionally you'll have a student where a specific product's specific features are really the only ones that meet that student's needs. So if you have a student who maybe has some very specific speech patterns or vocal qualities you've done extensive trials and there's really only one dictation tool that works for them, that gives them the right accuracy, then it's okay to go ahead and document that tool because you've really done your homework, you've really done the trials and the testing, and you know that this specific tool has something about it, has some features that are the only way we're meeting the student's needs. Then please go ahead and document that specific thing. So moving back into our flowchart, if we go back to our first question, is the student making adequate progress? And we say no, we have a student who's not making as much progress as we would like. Then we come to the question, does the team have enough information to make decisions about the student's AT needs? If the answer is yes, you've got a student who's not making the progress that you'd like, but you have some great ideas for what assistive technology is going to support them. Maybe you need to figure out some little details of it. Maybe you need to look at, back to our dictation example, a couple different dictation options, but you generally know what's going to meet these students' needs. Then we're going to come to outcome 3. AT is needed and the team has enough information to make specific AT decisions. Again, you're going to use option 3 in SPED forms to document that, and then go ahead and document your AT in the accommodation section. If you have a student that isn't making adequate progress and you really need more information, maybe you're saying the student isn't making adequate progress, maybe assistive technology could help, but I don't even know where to start, or, I've got 6 tools in mind and I'm not sure which one is going to be right. That's where we're going to come to outcome 4. AT is needed and we need more information. So for this, you're going to use option 4 in that drop down in the assistive technology box in SPED forms. And then you're going to document features of ATs that will be trialed, as well as a trial end date. I really encourage you to put an end date or an end date range just to kind of keep everybody on track. It's really easy to let assistive technology trials kind of fall by the wayside because we're all so busy and we all have so much going on. But we really, most AT trials I would like to see done in 8 weeks, maybe 6, maybe 10, but somewhere in that range, depending on how many tools you have to trial, your specific student, of course. But I think putting an end date on it, even if you end up needing to extend the end date, that's fine. But just making sure that it kind of keeps everybody on track and keeps the trials moving forward so we can get these really important tools into kids' hands. So those are our 4 big outcomes for assistive technology consideration. I just want to make a couple notes about these bullet points at the bottom. Because assistive technology is a required part of every annual IEP meeting, document your decision even if you decide the student doesn't need AT, because this just makes it really clear that you covered all of your bases and you completed that conversation of assistive technology consideration. The other big thing, which is kind of bullet points 2 and 3, is that I want us to focus on creating a full picture of the assistive technology that a student needs within their IEP. So if you have a standard classroom accommodation, you have a visual schedule up on your board for the day that all the students see. Some students that might be nice, but not essential. But if you have students that is an essential part of their day, that if you forgot to update that schedule, or you took the schedule down to clean the board and you forgot to put it back up, they would fall apart and not be able to transition. That needs to be part of their IEP. Even though it's a standard classroom accommodation for you, it might not be for the next teacher. Might not be if the student suddenly moves out of the district and it goes to a new school. So we really want to paint a full picture of what a student needs to be successful, even if it's standard for your classroom. The flip side of that we want to consider is that if there are things that are standard for your classroom that a student likes but doesn't require, we don't need to document those. So maybe you have a smart board in your classroom and the student who you're doing AT consideration for really likes the smart board. It's really engaging for them, but they could access the curriculum through a computer or through an iPad or through a Chromebook, and it would all kind of be fine. We don't need to include that smartboard on their plan. So it's really about parsing out what are essential components of the student's day, what assistive technologies are essential. So we make sure that we really paint a full picture of the student's needs on their IEP. Moving down to the second page, we have our guiding questions for assistive technology. I certainly don't expect anyone to go through all 18 of these questions in every IEP meeting. I put this together more as something for you to review before the meeting and see if it sparks any ideas for different ways to think about assistive technology, or maybe, a question that might help parse out a little bit more for a specific student. One thing I do like to bring attention to is number 5 down here in tasks. What tasks does the student need adult support to complete, and could adult support be reduced through the use of AT? A really easy example of this is if you have a student who is currently using a scribe to complete their work, with the use of word prediction or a specialized keyboard or dictation, or a stylus, or a combination of things. Could we reduce how much adult support a student needs? I always think that's a valuable component of AT as well. But lots of questions here, and hopefully some of them will just help you, think about AT a little bit differently moving into that conversation of consideration. As always, please let me know if you have any questions or you need ideas, or you want me to come out and help support this process. That's why I'm here. And I'm always happy to do that. Thank you.